Thanks for joining the HEFESTIS CISO Share Webinar Part 2, How to Defeat Ransomware. In this presentation, we will be discussing how to respond to, defend against, and plan to minimize the risk of a RYUK-style polymorphic cyber attack. In this Part 2 of the ransomware webinar, we will be looking at steps to take in the event of a ransomware attack, including workflow, direct ransomware and malware countermeasures, longer-term planning against future disruption, and I'll leave you with a few useful links and resources. Now, more detail is contained within the accompanying case study, which may be used as a reference whilst viewing the webinar, and may also be shared with stakeholders for further information. So, you've been attacked by ransomware, and it's just as awful as described in the previous webinar. Your digital estate has become infected. Consequently, any or all of the following may be experienced. Your enterprise servers have been hijacked. Information and files have been encrypted. Sensitive data may have been harvested. Key systems are offline, or even worse, destroyed, and users are locked out of their devices with a fixed ransom note on every affected machine. One successful attack can completely devastate an entire network and even be used to control your devices as a staging point to infect other higher or further education establishments and partnership organizations. So what should you do immediately following an attack? There is no magic bullet for defending or mitigating all types of cyber attack, but proper planning, preparation, practice, and procedures can greatly reduce the impact and disruption. Following the malware ransomware infection playbook, in line with the incident advice provided to all of our members, the following steps are recommended. Now, this section follows not only best practice advice from HEFESTIS, but also the Public Sector Action Plan, National Cyber Security Centre, the Information Security Office, Gartner, and industry experts in cyber security. Most often, the ransomware will identify itself when it asks for payment. However, some attacks may affect your digital estate without a ransomware note being issued to all or even any of the affected devices. If the ransomware is not self-advertising or infection has not been completed, the damage can still be done, but the type of attack may be identified as described on the screen. This information is replicated in the case notes provided, and there are also numerous sites to help identify the culprit. Identifying the ransomware will help you understand what types of ransomware you have, how it propagates, what type of files it encrypts, and maybe what your actions are for removal and disinfection. It will also enable you to report the attack to the authorities, which can be helpful and is recommended. Step 2. Analyze the situation. Try to identify the malware and the nature of its payload. Also try to identify the infection vector using the resources identified here and any other analytic resources that are available to you. It is important that you determine the severity and the scope of any attack so that you can take appropriate actions thereafter. The rate and speed of ransomware detection and identification is critical in combating first fast-moving attacks before they succeed in spreading across networks and encrypting vital data. Following identification of a malicious attack, the first thing to do when a computer, device, network, or digital estate has been infected is to isolate all devices suspected of being affected, infected, or infectable from other computers and storage devices. Disconnect them from the network, both wired and Wi-Fi, and from any external storage devices or services. Do not hesitate. Polymorphic packages, Trojan viruses, and crypto worms actively seek out connections and other computers, so you want to prevent that happening. You also don't want the ransomware communicating across the network with its command and control center. Step 4. Eradicate. For email, search and delete. Update anti-malware. Clean infected systems in an isolated state. Check roaming profiles, network shares. Patch or mitigate vulnerabilities or disable services. Reassess the scope of the infection against users and devices, internal and or external. Rinse and repeat as necessary. Consider restore or starting fresh if these steps do not work. We will consider restore or refresh in much more detail in the notes and in the following sections, which are again part of the case study which accompanies these webinars. Step 5. Recover. Create the service desk ticket with information on the actions which have been taken. Re-image the affected systems. Restore lost or compromised data from the backups. Unblock the accounts and reset passwords. Notify the relevant stakeholders, including affected users, the data protection officer, and please send follow-up communications to users. What else should you consider during the recovery step? Well, immediate treatment, eradication, or recovery may not be possible depending on the nature and perniciousness of the attack. Recovery, therefore, may take a prolonged period of time. You'll be following best practice and doing everyone a favour by reporting a significant ransomware attack to the authorities, and this includes doing a favour to yourselves. Additional services are also available to the further and higher education sector. HEFESTIS will always provide whatever support it can around an incident and work with other organisations to share intelligence, best practice and lessons learned. Also, do not hesitate to reach out to your fellow Scottish universities and colleges. Experience has proven that they will provide outstanding support and practical assistance. Remember as well that a ransomware or cyber attack may also constitute a personal data breach, a breach of security leading to the accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, alteration, unauthorized disclosure of or access to personal data transmitted, stored, or otherwise processed. If this is the case, you must report the breach to the Information Commissioner's Office within 72 hours of becoming aware of it. Liaise with your data protection officer, who will in turn liaise with the ICO. Your options when infected with ransomware are pretty limited. They are pay the ransom, try to remove the malware, or wipe the systems and reinstall from scratch. It is generally considered a very bad idea to pay the ransom. Paying the ransom encourages more ransomware, and in many cases, the unlocking of the encrypted files just doesn't happen or is not successful. You have the choice of trying to remove the malware from your systems or wiping your systems entirely and reinstalling from safe backup and clean operating systems and application sources. The choice is yours, but generally a significant infection will require complete reinstallation from scratch to ensure all infections are eradicated. More detail on these options is included within the case notes. After the incident and post-recovery, try to arrange a follow-up meeting with the response team. Produce an incident report. Use lessons learned from the incident to improve and enhance your planned response. and future responses. Try to arrange meetings with the affected users if necessary, and consider extending lessons learned, meetings and communications to wider stakeholder groups. There are some actions which can be taken to effectively guard against a ransomware attack, including a polymorphic RYUK style incident. Over and above Cyber Essentials certification, our members may consider these additional measures which may mitigate against the damage associated with this type of attack. First of all, detection. Given the dynamic nature of polymorphic attacks, we must reiterate the ransomware author may use multiple transformation techniques, including register renaming, code permutation, code expansion, code shrinking, and garbage code insertion. Consequently, advanced techniques such as generic encryption scanning, negative heuristic analysis, emulation, and access to virtualization technologies may well be required for detection. Now, this basically means that you're looking for behavior changes rather than identification of the infection, which may well be deeply hidden. Please note that even if your current malware protection, SIEMs, SOAR deployment, contains tools to detect and counteract this type of threat, those tools must be kept constantly up to date. To help detect and protect against Emotet or TrickBot activity, which are the precursors for most RYUK attacks, the following links may be useful, but are included as examples rather than guaranteed sources of detection or resolution for your particular enterprise or estate. If you have the appropriate licensing within the Chest Select agreement, Microsoft offer analytics tools which work with Azure as an on-prem solution, and the link is provided here as well. It is therefore strongly recommended that you check with your security vendors and suppliers to obtain specific advice on the level of protection provided and available against the latest threats. Please remember there is currently no vaccine, decryption code, or kill switch available for the RYUK ransomware encryption binary of which we are aware, so it will be very difficult to remove it if it is affecting your systems. Once an infection hits your enterprise environment, you will want to protect against lateral spread. You don't want it affecting your entire network or spreading out to your backups or external devices. Implementation or segmentation of Microsoft Enterprise Server Estate and multi-factor authentication between segments may help. This countermeasure may also help to prevent a complete outage of your estate. Microsegmentation guidance is available using the link provided on this page, also replicated as are all of the links within the case study documentation. You may also want to consider replacing H drives or similar with secure or cloud storage, such as OneDrive, to limit the damage to stored information. Faster recovery. Bear in mind that your entire enterprise estate or the segments infected by malware and or encryption, plus encrypted files and folders, including shared folders, may have to be completely purged and rebuilt. To recover more quickly from a ransomware attack, backups should be isolated and stored separately from the central environment. Restore drills from those backups should be practiced. You should also ensure that you have robust, practiced continuity plans in place, which include the business element of managing significant outage and restoring services. Thanks very much to Dundee and Angus College for providing the background for this information. So these plans should include business continuity plans containing communication, student retention, student recruitment, student assessment, recovery, replacement of learning and teaching materials, recovery of essential documentation, data systems recovery, approaches to file storage and new ways of working, Teams, OneNote, etc. report recreation, audit and compliance, and anything else which is important to the recovery of your college or university. In the longer term, the HEFESTIS maturity approach advocates a long-term continuous improvement to increase cyber and information security, which is commensurate with, again, the Public Sector Action Plan and best-in-breed information security methodology. This is to reduce the risk, threat, and chance of occurrence of any incident within your organisation. The detail of this approach is outlined in the 3 pillars approach to improved cybersecurity and maturity. The detail of this combined methodology is provided on-site via the HEFESTIS CISO Share service. So let's look at prioritisation. As a focused practice to integrate malware protection, you may consider prioritisation of the following steps to reduce the risk of successful ransomware attack to your college or university. A balanced risk-based approach should always be taken in approaching development of information and cybersecurity resilience and maturity. Each of these steps, plus some Gartner advice on selection of endpoint security solutions, are included within the case study in reasonable detail. But what we do recommend is back up all of your data. Patch, patch, patch. Educate your users on attack methods. Protect your network. Segment network access. Keep a close eye on network activity. Prevent infiltrations. Arm your endpoints. Gain real-time threat intelligence. And finally, don't pay the ransom, ever. Okay, here in one place are some of our top legitimate resources for ransomware and cyber attack support, which are also included within, you guessed it, the support study. Okay, that is the end of the examples and context and the ransomware study. So we've covered how we can take steps to secure against ransomware and recover from an attack should it occur. We hope the information contained within this webinar and case study is useful and of interest. The notes will be circulated immediately following the release of the 2 webinars, along with copies of the presentation slides used to illustrate the narrative. So it only leaves for me to say thanks for joining, thanks for listening. As always, HEFESTIS are delighted to answer questions or clarify any of the details in this webinar. Please feel free to contact us as detailed on this slide if we can be of any assistance whatsoever. Goodbye for now, stay safe, and all the best.